Pete Rose said, "My father taught me that the only way you can make good at something is to practice, and then practice some more." So my sources for my speech, I found the Pete Rose quote on Brady Quote. I'm using my dad's LinkedIn account just for some business information, and then I'm also using a article about when my dad started working for Michael Baker in 2004, and then an interview with my dad, as well as just personal anecdotes that I've learned throughout my years of life. So my speech is about honoring my father. I'm going to talk about him overcoming the loss of his father, some superior accomplishments in his business career, and as well as some pure unselfish motives in helping out a friend in a financial crisis. But first, let me introduce to you my audience.
Hi, I'm Kelsey.
I'm Austin.
I'm Lindley.
Alright, so in 1975, at 16 years old, my dad lost his father from a heart attack. He found out as soon as he came home from school, and as you can imagine, 16-year-old, and I mean honestly anybody losing their father, be pretty upset. Well, he had to man up pretty quickly. His sister was 4 years older than him and was off in college, and his brother was 8 years older than him and had already graduated college and moved on with his life. So my dad was held fully responsible for calling all of the family and telling them what happened, because his mom, my grandma, was just too upset to do it. And so with that, at 16 years old, my dad became the man of the house. With his mom, my grandma not working at all, she had to get a job, and he had to get a job to help pay for the house and to help pay for cars, as well as his freshman year of college, which was eventually coming up. So he used his dad's death as motivation to just keep going with his life and to learn to support himself earlier. And also in school, my dad was the valedictorian of his high school class. He easily could have just taken the death of his father and just let that consume him and kind of ruin his school and not focus on school, but instead he used that as a way to motivate him. So as I said, he got a job, and he helped raise enough money to pay for his freshman year of college, which he began in 1977 at Texas A&M. And in 1981, he graduated Texas A&M with a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering. And then soon after, he began working for LAN as a civil associate, in which his responsibilities were anywhere from site development, roadway design, runway and taxiway design, as well as grading and drainage and many other responsibilities within the transportation industry. And in 1985, he gained a certificate. He had earned a professional engineer title. And at that time, he began focusing more on solely transportation design, specifically aviation and highway design. And between the years of 1985 and 1993, he continued to work with LAN. He worked on what was at the time one of the largest highway planning and design projects in Texas, given to him by the Texas Department of Transportation, which consisted of the widening and the reconstructioning of I-45 from South Beltway in Houston to Conroe, so a large chunk of I-45. And then in 1989, he went to Fort Worth. He went to Fort Worth in 1987 for a brief period of time to help open up a branch, but in 1989, he moved back to the Houston area where he managed the final design. And then in 1993, he transferred back to the office that he had helped start in Fort Worth. And then shortly after, in 1995, he joined Garcia and Associates. So he left LAN and went to Garcia and Associates, another a small civil engineering firm. And the business quickly grew. The company within a few 4 or 5 years, grew substantially within the DFW area, and my dad became a minority partner, making him responsible for day-to-day operations, specifically hiring staff, purchasing equipments, the marketing and business development in the DFW area. And in 2002, the Garcia and Associates merged with another group and became Lopez Garcia and Associates, in which my dad took over management for the Fort Worth office, and where he was responsible for marketing and business development and across all of the business lines. So that was all of Lopez Garcia and Associates firms. He was responsible for working out of the Fort Worth office. And in 2004, at the time it was just Michael Baker Jr. It is now Michael Baker International, but in 2004 he took a job with Michael Baker Jr., a small civil engineering firm based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He worked in the Arlington, Texas office, and he was responsible for growing business in Texas firms. He's overseen, through his 12 years with Michael Baker, he's overseen major highway and interstate reconstructions in the Dallas area, the Austin area, the Houston area. And now most recently, Michael Baker has become exactly what the title says. It's become more international. They're trying to reach globally, so they've changed their name from Michael Baker Jr. to Michael Baker International. So, as much as my dad succeeded with his business career, he has earned quite a bit of money, but he's very generous with his money. We're not a family to take pride in how much money we have, and we live very frugal, and this is also shown by my dad's generosity. In the late 2000s, a family friend who I'd rather not name, they went through a huge identity theft crisis. They had their credit cards stolen, their social security numbers stolen, their names, and much more. And they had lost tens of thousands of dollars. This person was going to the extent of going to their house and pulling mail that he had mailed to their house under their name, but it was meant for him, and he would go to their mailbox and he'd pull it out so that they wouldn't see it. And it got to the point where they barely had enough money to feed their 3 kids and themselves. But my dad finally saw the point where he had to step in and he had to help, but he didn't want to tell them. So for 6 months, he deposited $15 a week in their mailbox anonymously. He would just drive up, drop it off, and leave, which $1,500 over 6 months is $39,000, and he expected nothing in return. He did it anonymously because he didn't want them to know. He didn't want them to feel pressured to pay them back, and so his generosity, it just kind of astounds me that he'd be willing to give that much money. But that's just how my dad's always been. But after a while, they became really suspicious because they wanted to know where this money was coming from, where $1,500 a week was coming from. So they started just peeking out the window every now and then, and they actually eventually set up a camera so that they could see who was doing it. And my dad was in a rush to get to church, and so he got a little lazy and he got there early. Generally, he waited until it was dark so they couldn't see. But they caught him. They caught him putting the money in, and immediately, they just started crying, and they were so happy and so just like amazed that my dad would do something like that. And to this day, they thank my dad for saving their marriage and saving their family, just because they were so torn apart by the loss and not being able to pay for anything until my dad stepped in. So that right there just shows everything that my dad is about and how he's been raised. So just to summarize everything, I spoke about the death of my dad's dad when he was 16 years old and how he used it to motivate him in school and his work, and then also becoming the vice president of Michael Baker International. He went through 23 years of work and slow progression, hard work just to get to where he is today. And with that, just being so generous with his money, that it's not all about him. It's about everyone really, and that's his approach. So that's why I chose to honor my dad in this speech.